So the purpose of Special Need Children's WhatsApp group, it was created to bring UK-based Indian special need children and their parents together, hoping this might give more insight to support our special need children. The group was created in April 2023, and currently we have 217 parents. So thanks to Ali and Geeta Murtha ji for starting this group. Huge massive thanks. And mainly the agenda of today's Zoom call is to discuss with expert panelist Sandeep Saxena and Sachin Kotalwar about benefits of becoming a parent governor. So good evening and warm welcome to all. Thanks to everyone for joining the meeting. So let's introduce our expert panelist, Sandeep Saxena, who is 62 years, working as a consultant anesthetist, intensivist, have a 32-year-old autistic daughter who has minimal language and no capacity. Wife is a consultant surgeon, 20-year-old daughter just completing a bachelor's degree. Have worked to design hospital primary care services for learning disabled and dementia. So thank you for being here, Sandeep. Let's introduce another expert panelist, Sachin Kotalwar. He's in his 44, 50s age, I believe. And he's a seasoned IT professional with work experience spanning over 2 decades, working for big consultancy firms and Fortune 500 clients. Sachin is a proud parent of two wonderful kids. He is also a parent governor with Wheelchair Council, working with school offering special education. His interests are books, cooking, psychology, and investment. As a parent of carer, you are hugely important to your children's education and personal development. Engaging with children school with will benefit their education and provides the opportunity for you to share what's going well and what needs to be improved. So this is what the session is all about. Let me introduce myself as well. My name is Vinod Devka. I work in IT for last 23 years now, and I have twins, 13-year-old, a boy and a girl. A boy has a profound health needs due to brain injury. So, um, yeah, and my daughter is a normal child, goes to normal school. And yeah, my missus, she's used to work in NHS, but now a full-time carer looking after my son for last 13 years. So that's all about me. So let's kick off the session with starting with questions to our panelists. Um, so we'll be going one question to one of the panelists and the second to the next, and then so that they get equal, we get equal, the right balance, and like that. Yeah. So.
But again, just to add a little bit, I mean, if there is anything for us to add extra on to any question, right, please feel free to interrupt or add on to that, because I think if it's a recorded session, the idea is parents can watch this at their leisurely time and also still benefit from some additional knowledge around this. I just want to make sure, right? I mean, at the end of this session, if there are key takeaways, people get inspired to join and contribute to the society, also in parallel help themselves. I think it will be a output which will be well worth it. Yeah. Thank you.
Certainly, yeah. Thank you. So my first question to Sandeep is, how much time do we, as parent governors, need to contribute to special needs school? Uh,
So let me answer this slightly laterally. The reason why I became a parent governor was so that I could put something back into society. Very altruistic idea. But in the end, over 5 or 7 years while I was with them, I found that the benefits of what I got out of it were well out of proportion to what I had put in. So I got to know local authorities, I got to know support groups, I became on first name terms with all the pediatricians who were doing school services. I got to know the community learning disability team who would transition my adult child when they became adult. I also got to know the fact that they stay in the same room. So I knew the social workers plus the local authority people. So when we had a failed college placement, a bit like what Geeta ji was talking about, I knew who to contact and what to do. So because the outcome is that much greater, I don't really mind the time I put into it, which is a lateral way of answering the question. In real terms, if you're a parent governor, and you don't necessarily have to be a parent governor, there are two other kinds of governors that you can be. You can either be co opted by the school, or you can even become a local authority governor. And a local authority governor is fairly easy to do by applying to the local authority, speaking to them, and if they have vacancies, they'll put you in. One of the things that came across really, really well was the time that was needed was roughly about, for meetings, 3 to 4 hours every month or so, but you had more work to do. But imagine if Geeta ji is the, shall we say, if she's performance managing the head teacher of the college where her daughter is or her son is, you can bet your bottom dollar that head teacher will pay a lot more attention to what the hell's going on with the placement. So taking on the slightly more challenging roles can be very useful. So it's as much time as you want to put in. My local authority, and I looked up their website just now, still says expect to put in 10 to 15 hours a month. It could be less, it could be more. If you want to be self-serving like me, because my NHS commitments are huge, I was working 60, 70-hour weeks, then I did the minimum possible and I did health related stuff, but I got to know what I wanted to know. So long answer to a very short question, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a week, 3 to 5 hours a month, to as much as 15 hours a month.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And what sort of, when you mentioned about 10 to 15 hours of your own personal time will be required during a month. So is it only after working hours, like after 5 o'clock, or is it during working hours or on weekends? When do you normally
No,
spend those hours?
most of the time that I had to spend, occasionally I was doing visits at school to see, inspect, or run certain facilities. So maybe I was in charge of, say, looking at what sports facilities they had, or maybe was looking at what kind of equality and diversity measures they had in place. That would be within school hours. So I could choose the time. So there was a fair amount of leeway. The time is largely spent in the paperwork, and I bet Sachin will bear me out. The paperwork is quite a bit nowadays. It's become more and more, and performance managing means they will also put you through courses. So I have done courses through being a governor. I started as a parent governor. I then later on became a local authority governor, and finally I was co-opted from the NHS to stay as a governor. That's why I spent about 7 years in different roles in there. So the time is not on a weekend. Absolutely certain about that. Nobody in the UK will come to work on a weekend. Take it from me, unless there's good money involved.
So how did you manage, because you are working as a consultant in NHS, and I know the busy hours. How did you manage your week
Vinod,
hours?
no different from any of you. You're all juggling. You're all juggling. The idea is you have 5 or 6 balls in the air. You hope and pray you don't drop too many. So it's always juggling. And I bet Sachin will say the same thing. You run from one appointment and you say to your colleagues, look, I'm out for 15 minutes, and you're away for an hour and a half at a meeting. And then you come back. And then because you see, there is a natural connection between the NHS and special schools. So I could play that to my advantage. And I would say, well, actually, I'm meeting the pediatric nurses in the school to make sure that we have a system for seamless integration with hospital services. So there are ways in, you just have to
Okay.
juggle.
No.
Just to add to a little bit what Sandeep ji has said there, I think a lot of private employees, in UK and even the government employers do value voluntary work, because this is, at the end of the day, being a governor is you're not getting paid for it, right? You're volunteering your time for the society. So that is always valued by most of the employers, and you could also get a paid time off for doing voluntary work. And I mean, I think one of the benefits I have always seen is that it looks fantastic on CV as well. And I think beyond anything else, right? I think it benefits you because you are improved in ways you will not imagine. For example, I was not really good at finance. And when I got a chance to be a governor, I got training in finance space. I got a chance to look at the budgets. Then I understood what is the budget variance, where the money is actually going. And, I have an authority to basically challenge where I think the money is wrongly spent. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, uh, one line, do not miss an opportunity to be governor, right? So that's what I would add to this. Yeah.
So, like, I mean, a question to Sachin here. So I understand there are different kinds of governor. Like one is local authority governor, one is parent governor, and one is like elected governor, something like that. So can you just give us more um, clarity on how, if anyone wants to be a parent governor, is it an elected governor by, or what's the procedure basically to apply? So the parents can basically.
So usually for a school, there are 2 to 4 openings as a parent governor, right? I think being a parent governor is you bringing in the view of a parent to the school. So you have a governing body which is formed of staff governors, which is head teachers. We have local authority governors. We have co-opted governors. We have parent governors. So our objective is to be an overseeing body which looks at how the overall strategy is. For example, school might have a vision, and there are a number of factors. There are factors like health and safety. There are factors like finances. There are factors like what we see is typically school's vision. You have regular Ofsted visits. So there are a number of areas where you act as a friend to head teacher. So being a governor, I see you're a friend to the teacher, a head teacher, as well as a contributing member to the school. So if there are areas which you can contribute, for example, if you're a chartered accountant, for example, right? Or if you're an IT guy, or if you're a healthcare professional, we all have expertise which we can bring to and our views. I think at the end of the day, like um, when we bring different ways of looking at a problem. So if you see a school is facing a challenge, for example, in the safety area, yeah, as a parent, you will have your own view. And being a governor gives you that opportunity, right? So the answer to your question now is how do you get to be governor? Because let's say there are 2 to 4 opportunities. There are options where you can be, if there are, let's say, because it's at the end of the day, your time is valuable. Right? That's the only currency which you can't buy with anything else. So you are giving your time to the society, and lots of parents are always busy. So you might not have enough candidates to be a parent governor. But if you are in that fortunate situation where people do not want to join as a parent governor and you are the only one vying for the role, then there might not be any election. But typically, if there are more people than the vacancies, then there will be an election where you have to write a short biography about yourself, what you are and what you're going to bring. And that information is then circulated among the parents of the school. And the number of votes parents give to that candidate will determine whoever is a preferred candidate for the role. So it is very much, I mean, if you look at it, right, I mean, if you've never been to politics, it can be daunting, because, I mean, you're not canvassing or you're not trying to promote yourself, but it's a proper election process if there are more candidates than, about the number of seats.
So it's not in the hands of the governing board, but it's the election process if there are more than one candidates and the place is just one. So it goes through voting process and school makes that decision to circulate email or whatever and do that
Yes,
election for the parents. Okay. Yeah. Thank
Sandeep.
you. Thank you, Sachin. Yes, Sandeep ji, please.
I'll just add to what Sachin said. The fact that you have volunteered to become a governor is by itself a pretty big thing. And bet your bottom dollar the school will record your name. Imagine there are more people than there are spaces. They'll keep an eye out for you. And next time there's a vacancy coming up, they might just ask you directly. One bit I can tell you is I've seen a lot of parent governors come and a lot of parent governors go. Exactly as Sachin said, it can be demanding. And if you want to make an improvement, you want to make a change, which I think most of us in this group are, otherwise we wouldn't be speaking today. That is what keeps people on. So put your name up. If you don't get it now, you will get it at some stage, and you can always uh, write to the local authority and ask them if they need local authority governors. Local authority governors do not necessarily have to be parent governors, and the child doesn't even have to be in the special school. They don't need to be specially trained. So there are lots of other things that go into it.
Thank you, Sachin and Sandeep ji. So let's move on to the next question. I, next question will be to Sandeep. I think we have partially received answer for this question. What are the benefits of becoming a parent governor? I think some of the insights you have already given, like you get in to know various people working with school, right from local authority and the governing body, which consists of head teachers and other staff members and all the different people working, all the other parents who are part of the process. So, and the organizations that also work with the school, you get to know with them as well, right? So, is there anything you could add to this?
Oh yes, I mean chapter and verse. There's so much I can tell you. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's through being a governor that I met people who run local play groups. Through being a governor that I found out that 20 miles from where I am, there's a specialized institution that has a drama production facility for special needs kids. So they create their own videos. Now that's the kind of information that you could search high and low and not get, particularly since the COVID times, funding for a lot of special needs has reduced. Local authorities under immense pressure. Social schemes are not working as well as they should. They are underfunded. So finding that information was invaluable. Next one, I was talking about how my daughter had a failed university placement, a bit like Geeta ji was talking about. At that stage, when things failed, because I was a governor at the school still, organizing a reparative a package, so that could be funded. Because don't forget, your children are funded till they're age 16. After age 16, Geeta ji mentioned something. She said 16 to 65. Actually, it's 16 to 85. Services are the same whether you are 16 years old or 85 years old. And suddenly, all the support that you have in school years goes away. At that stage, knowing all the people and knowing how to hit the finances, who to speak to get a budget put together, I could actually organize a very bespoke placement for one person, which was my daughter, with 2-to-1 support to get her back on track. That, because I knew the community learning disability team from my previous experience working with them, I could seamlessly transition her into there. Seamlessly for me, it still took her 4 years for her to get back to where she was. But if I had not been a governor, I would not have been able to do it. I can tell you that. I also became a leader for a local focus group, and then we played into, because I live in near Yorkshire, we played into what Yorkshire's priorities should be for special needs kids. So there are many other ways in which you can influence all kinds of activities that happen locally. Just have to keep your ears open. Most of us here know more than enough about how to influence things like that. I'm sure Sachin will have very similar experiences.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I would like to add, right? I mean, you always have local offers, which are if you just search for local offer in your county, you will get ton of resources as well. I think even because it's a lot of material, you now have an ability to reach out to professionals, to reach out to the school people and a sort of colleagues who have been in that particular space for a fairly long time. You could actually tap their knowledge and understand what does this mean, right? Because specifically for people like me who have been educated out of UK, it's always an uphill mountain to understand the local education system, and the mechanism of learning and is also much different to what we actually come across during in the Asia. So so this support group, what you get chance to meet and connect to, it really useful, right? And because you join the meetings, at the end of the meeting you can always borrow a few minutes from head teacher, few minutes from other colleague who has been doing something. And mostly I have found people very very helpful, and willing to share their knowledge.
No, thank you. Thank you, Sachin and Sandeep. So, next question to Sachin. So, is there any eligible criteria to become a parent governor, and does it varies between, I mean, based on different counties or
Um,
schools?
I mean, uh, I think you need to be a parent to be a parent governor, right? So
And
uh,
does your child need to be in that school, or
it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be, but it always helps. For example, in my case, my child is going to a school. I realize that my engagement with the school is not enough, and I wanted to increase that engagement because I wanted to understand the setup, education setup, and I also wanted to understand, what next. So these kind of questions, because the best way to, how should I say, way to know about battle is to actually be in the battle, right? So this is your chance to at least come closer to the battle, and in addition to whatever you're doing in your day job to make a living.
yeah.
So as a parent governor, there is no specific requirement, as long as you can read the material which is given to you, and you do need to basically participate in lots of trainings, as Sandeep you mentioned, depending on your interest as well, right? Because they, being a governor means they will always help you to onboard you. There is a governor hub and all that's information set available. So there is no specific criteria, right, to be a parent governor, but no, ability to read, ability to listen, ability to contribute positively and be vocal about what your thoughts are always an important ingredient of being a good parent governor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, Sandeepji. Yeah, yeah,
Um, Vinod, drop the G. I don't think
yeah.
I
So,
don't deserve quite as much in respect as that. Sandeep is absolutely fine. Now, I
okay.
was just going to add to that. Now, this is slightly out of the box. A lot of 90% of the schools, special schools I've been to, and I see a lot of special schools because of my own work. I've expanded work out into the community, so I work in the community. I do kind of sedation lists for special needs kids, so simple things like vaccinations or blood tests are available, which can be done in the community, and I provide the support for that. So I've met lots of people. One of the things I've found is ethnic minorities are grossly underrepresented. So imagine you want to be a governor at a school, you just have to go and speak to the head teacher, which you can at any time, and say to them, look, I'm interested in being a parent governor. And have you looked at the black and ethnic minority representation upon your governor board? And you will find that a lot of people will take that on very strongly. It can be a very useful thing to keep in mind. It's a race card, I agree. But at the end of the day, you're interested in what's best for your child and to support other children of the same background. And Sachin, being a governor, is going to do a damn sight more than at least half a dozen of the other parent governors I've seen over the years.
Amazing tool to get and become a parent governor, but use this wild card, I can say. So yeah, thank you. I mean, another question was related to um, being a parent governor. Is there trainings that you have to go and choose yourself? Does school provide the training, or you have to do it through an external board, or I mean, on your own expenses? How those trainings um, can be, done? Is it like school local authority funds those training, or do we have to fund from our pocket? How, Sandeep? Sandeep, please come on this.
I think I'm going to say exactly what Sachin was going to say, which is that any training that you need to will be done will be set up by the school, will be arranged by the school. You have to find the time to do it. Though this role is not paid, anything that's needed for you to perform in your role will be set up by the school. I must admit, a bit like Sachin. I mean, I'm brand new to the system. I was from a completely different background, and I was from a very. You guys and I too are much more clever. All I've done is 40 years of medicine. Don't forget that. I don't know anything apart from medicine. So seeing the stuff that goes on was very interesting, and all of that was provided was by the school, and most of it was online as well.
Okay, CBT trainings.
Yes. Yeah. So
Could
just
you?
to add to that, I mean, you have not only a new governor trainings to make sure your transition from a parent to a parent governor can be more smooth. There are also specialist training available. For example, a finance training, which I mentioned earlier. You have a training available in the space safety, and online security. I mean, not nowadays things like, the things which you as a parent governor benefit from, even understanding the nuances of those things, like for example online bullying, right? I mean, most of us who probably did not face IT euphoria at the beginning of our life would not believe, um, the amount of online bullying which can happen. I know all of these things could be new depending on what kind of culture and what kind of areas you have come across. So these trainings, the only thing which is required is your time to attend this training. But I think it does open new avenues and new understanding of what things are happening in the society as well as in the school, right? So very very useful. So there are specialty training available. There's also a governor hub, which is a special dedicated website with a lot of resources which you get access to, which you can access at your own leisurely time. There are online videos and there are online training. For example, I've been to a prevent training. How do you identify children who are radicalized? How do you make sure that you catch the nuances where you see, okay, there is a chance that I need to seek support. It's a very delicate topic, right? But radicalization itself is a very delicate topic. How do you handle that delicately, as well as making sure that you know the process of handling it? So those specialist training like prevent trainings are also part of these offerings which you get as a parent governor.
Amazing. Thank you, Sachinji. Yes, Sandeep, please come on.
Just to come back into there, the other bits of training, quite apart from the prevent training, think of safeguarding training. You're talking safeguarding at a level 3, which is quite serious training. You're talking about restraint training, which is also very serious stuff that you can learn from. There's also a complete workup with Mental Capacity Act and the implications of things like power of attorney, court of protections. At least 70% of what I know comes from my governor time. And 12 years down the line, I'm still in touch with the schools because they still contact me whenever they have some student who's coming into the hospital or going out of the hospital. So those links will last a very long time.
Especially when you are in working in NHS, they always love to be in connect so that you can, things keep changing, and certainly having a connect in NHS does help them to get a quick response rather than going through the lengthy process. So thank you. So yeah, there are amazing trainings that are offered, and that will not only help you to perform your role as a parent governor, but will also do it is upskilling yourself, and also um, I mean, you learn so many things in this process. That's what I understand. So no, thank you. So um, let's go to the next question.
I do wanted to add a little bit there, right?
Yes, please. Yeah,
G. I
yeah.
think the important thing is to understand that this is a serious commitment, right? I mean, as Sandeep mentioned that, things people come and people go. If you, I think, being a parent of a child with special gifted abilities, you're already having that extra superpowers to withhold all the pain in the life can throw you along with its joys. But the one thing to note is that you are dedicating some time of your life and use that wisely for yourself as well as to the society, and be tenacious, because initial time can be uphill struggle, because it took me at least 2 years to understand what they're talking about, all the code word, all the buzzwords. You slowly absorb into it and you go into the nitty gritties, drill down the documents, and understand what they're talking about, right? So yeah.
So generally, how long is the term of a parent governor? Is it
Typical term is roughly around 4 years. It's
4 years?
a 4 year term, but it's not binding for you. If you feel that this is not your cup of tea, you can always resign from the responsibility of a parent governor. But what I would want to add is, although how much daunting it looks initially, the rewards are greater once you stay put to you and to your child and to the society.
So thank you, Sachin. So now we understand the role of parent governor, and the responsibilities are to basically um, feed and be part of the policies that the school design, and give your own views as a parent, and what will help the school to, and the policy that school will be designing will also consider parents' views and the children's benefit, how children will benefit from those policies. So So it's good that it's an holistic approach that the school is taking by accepting parents' views as well. So, um, is there, as a parent governor, is there any way that you could help any other parents who migrate into, uh, let's say, in the same town? I mean, this is a question which specifically I I had to go through a pain when I migrated. So, is a parent governor has got any responsibility? Let's say if a child doesn't get a place in the school, he's put down into a different school. Is there anything a parent governor can approach on behalf of that parent to the head teacher and say,
No,
no?
because we have to draw some clear boundaries, right? As a parent governor, you're there to govern.
Okay.
So if there are specific cases, because day to day, you are not doing to day to day operations of the school. For example, you might have a scenario where a school might have demand for 50 students. I mean, 50, there are 50 candidates waiting to get into the school, whereas there are only 20 spaces. So that decision of how your child can get admitted to a specific place is with the school. But you as a parent do have options to challenge that. If you feel that that place is right for you, you can take it to a tribunal and all that. So there are a lot of other avenues available. But as a parent governor, it is not your job to influence um, these sort of things where you can decide which child can get admission and which child can't get an admission, right? So you have to be very fair. And I mean, I can tell you, most of the cases, parent governors will never be involved in this.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Sandeep. Please go on.
Uh, just a little bit of a nuance to what Sachin is saying. I work in an area where we have a large majority, well, not large majority, a large number of ethnic minority students. They're typically from Bangladesh. A large number of them are from Somalia. Some of the newer ones are coming in from Eastern Europe and they don't speak English either. What I've found is special needs kids there get a much rougher deal than some of the local special needs kids. Why? Because the local people have the language, they understand how to put the words together. They also know the organizations that can support them. For instance, in my local authority, when I started as a parent governor, I leaned upon them to create a website which had the resources that parents could access before they would apply for this. And I got them to translate it into Bengali, into a couple of other languages. So you can exert influences like that that they might not have even thought about. That's number one. The second one, once it became known that I was a parent governor who was willing to talk to anybody and everybody, sometimes I could direct the parents who were applying, either directly or indirectly, to understand the language, what was expected from them. Remember, this is England. This is the mother of the bureaucracy you see in India. They are very fond of forms in this country. So if you have the forms and you know the right word, the buzzword, as Sachin was saying, to put in, that will make a big difference. It's like the number of ethnic minority parents who apply for PIP or disability living allowance. If you don't know how to use the right words, you will not get the response. I've seen parents whose awards have changed dramatically when they've used the right resources. So in my local area, there is a particular group that was in existence many years ago, has since mutated into different names, whose only job is to help ethnic minority parents fill out these forms, even for applying to special schools. So you can level the playing field a little bit. And sometimes if there are people from completely outside the system, I think it's important that they know that they have a contact. And my name was as the contact for any parents who want to apply who didn't think they stood a chance with the local people. And that wasn't positive discrimination. That was just
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep and Sachin. So I think I had few questions, but there are a few more questions, but I'll open the floor to our um, audience, lovely audience, Geeta, Amruta ji, Rekha ji, and Geet ji. So we'll take few questions from them if they have any, and then again we'll resume the questions on the list. So Geet ji, Rekha ji, and Geeta Amruta ji, any one of you would like to ask any particular questions, or do you have any queries to our lovely expert panelists? Please raise hand or just come up the mic and say, go on with your question.
While people are thinking up, let me just share a fascinating story. I bet Sachin will have a bit of a shock when he hears this. A few months ago, a parent who I know is at whose child is at a special school comes to me in the hospital surroundings. This child who is severely learning disabled, has a hoist at all times, needs 2-to-1 care. This lady doesn't speak any English. She's had several procedures at the hospital for a son. The first document that she shows me is a do not resuscitate order, right? So I asked her, what does this mean? She had no idea. Now think about this. This is a lady whose son is now 12 years old. She's been in the system. For the last 6 years, been at a special school. Yet this mother does not know what that order that she's got in her hand is. She says, oh, we just show this to the ambulance every time they come, because I could speak some Bengali and she had some Sylheti Bengali which we could converse in. The interpreter who came in could not speak Sylheti Bengali, which is a specific flavor of a dialect in Bangladesh. This is what I mean by lack of equity. So this is the kind of thing that really gets my goat, because this is the thing that I will fight tooth and nail to ensure does not happen, not as while I can manage to stop it. And that's what you can do as a parent governor.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you, Sandeep, for sharing the experience and helping the parent. Actually, otherwise she would be having the order and would be sitting with it for years without knowing the actual meaning of it. So
Well, I mean,
thanks.
let me get this right. I didn't do this to help them. I did this to make sure that the right care was given to the chap. I'm not helping anybody. I'm just making sure that this chap needs a. Would you believe it? This lady has not been able to get funding for support. So that child who needs two people to hoist him has not had a shower for 1 year. And this
Unbelievable.
lady is frail,
Correct.
45 kilograms. She can't lift him out. I mean, this is unbelievable. So I've actually had a word with the local authority and I've ruffled a fair few feathers to make sure that at least, if nothing else, this matter is taken forward and it's treated as a safeguarding concern.
Thank you, Sandeep. So if audience Rekha ji, Geet ji, and Geetamruta ji are do not have any questions, shall we go ahead with the questions that we have now?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you for the wonderful webinar. I'm just trying to sink in what all they're saying. I'm pretty new to the parent governing stuff. So yeah, just go ahead with your questions, please.
Thank you, Rekha ji. And we'll again come back after a few questions at the last 10, 15 minutes with any queries that you have or any questions by the time you can, note it down and then ask our panelists. Yeah. So we'll resume with the questions. So as a question to Sachin. So as a parent governor, how can you make an impact in the governing board? And is there any examples that you can share with us today?
Indeed. I think I did touch upon this in the earlier discussion. All of us do bring something to the table, right? And if it is nothing, at least our point of view to the problem. Because we come from an ethnic background, the way we see at a problem might be different from the way the other person might see, right? Even if it is a safeguarding issue, for example. And so you could be an expert in finance, like an accountant, where you could go through the financial topic, and you could also see gaps in that particular space. Right? So you could be an IT consultant where you see a problem with the IT system which is being used in the school, or you see probably, for example, the monitoring of the child is not proper or properly captured. You can suggest them IT technologies and tools. Nowadays, you have ton of technologies available which can help them capture the information safely and securely, as well as you can ask them to reach the school to reach out to the specialist systems, and you can be part of the team who is actually reviewing those systems, which ultimately will be put in to capture the information and all that. So every person will bring something or the other, right? For example, if you are a healthcare professional, you know the tricks and tips of getting through the NHS and making sure the right resources from NHS can reach to the needy, right? So all of these is always valued by the governing board. You have a chair of governors. So the structure is usually you have a chair of a governor. So the main person who is like a chair, and then you have different governors, and there will always be a governing meeting where the head teacher will present number of documents which are already pre-shared to all the governors. We are expected to read those documents and add our comments or information, right? There will be bits which you do not understand. You can always tap the resource and understand what it is all about, either before or after the meeting. So idea here is that we not only ourselves, we enrich ourselves with different areas of knowledge that we might not have. We also give back the skills what we have acquired.
But just on the same thing, let's say in the board meeting, you share your views, and from your perspective, it is the best view you're sharing, but maybe the board, who makes the decision? Like your view has been shared. How that view gets recorded, being a view that needs to be thought of and then implemented, or maybe be part of the policy. Who makes
Mm.
that decision? Is that the board who makes the decision, or how is it recorded?
So all the communication which goes in the meeting is recorded as minutes, right? And if there is anything missing, you can always raise your concern, and that can be added if you think that that is not actually recorded properly. So the minutes are recorded, and whenever there is an Ofsted inspection, they make sure that they do go through these minutes. So it is, I mean, they Ofsted is very meticulous. They also make sure that all these meetings, who actually attend the meetings and who do not attend, how actively are governors part contributing to the school. That's all that all gets recorded. Coming back to your question about your individual view, we all see the world through our glasses. So um, our view may be correct, may not be correct, but I think the ultimate decision will lie upon with the chair of governors and head teacher.
So the chair of governor will make the final summarized decision from that particular topic on the day,
Correct.
along with head teacher. Okay. Anything you have, Sandeep ji, to add here?
Well, all I can say is I've seen parent governors influence policy dramatically. So be aware that a vocal parent governor, imagine Geeta Amrita ji there, can influence decision making dramatically. And it doesn't necessarily have to be to take matters head on. Very much like I said earlier, it's not what is said, sometimes it's what is not said, or what is implied. Um, I have rarely seen a major disagreement in the governing bodies. Typically, most governing bodies run shy of making the casting vote being the deciding one. Almost invariably, they try to look for consensus. So they understand that consensus is better than confrontation. But that's always the case in any bigger body. And since the finances are coming from a central site, um, it's a lot easier to do that. Uh, yes, so I think parents make a huge difference. I've seen some very interesting examples of that locally.
Okay, no, thank you. So when you mean the finances are funding is coming from the central side, is it the local government, or is it the education state?
So whatever, whoever's financing, whoever's putting in the money, will want bang for the buck. It also means that none of these finances are directly ones that, imagine it's a corporate. In a corporate, the financing is related to the decisions you make. To a degree in education, that isn't the case. The outcomes that you have, particularly for special schools, they can't match that to a metric which says we'll get more funding. Versus that, if you have an academy, they may have some tenuous connection between our response, our performance was this good, hence we get so much more. That's not always the case with special needs. Special needs is a slightly different ball game. You have to know how to say it and who to say it to, And you even get to meet your local MPs on a fairly regular basis. I have. That's how I know my local MPs by first name, because that's where I met them in the odd governing meeting that they came to, because we needed them there.
Okay, thank you. Um, so next question is to for Sandeep here. Um, I think we have discussed this question, but again, I'll go with the question. What are the various parties that attend meeting with parent governor?
It's a whole big group of people. I mean, I don't know Sachinji's experience, but the governing body that I was a part of would probably have about 15 or 20 people around a big table. And that could be anybody from the local authority, that could be the social workers, that could be specialist educators, that could be local authority appointed governors. So, a whole range of people who brought a different set of skills. But the thing is that once the subject, the areas that somebody is looking into, so for instance, if Sachinji is looking into finances, he would be dealing with the finances. If I were performance managing the head teacher, I would be discussing performance managing the head teacher. So each one of us would have our own specific areas where we would be looking at what we put together in terms of our responses, and that would be taken up. So you actually have quite a wide representation of interests around the place, and sometimes local MPs will join in as well. Typically around election time, they get very active.
Okay, okay. So mainly it is each individual representative in that meeting will have a separate topic. It's not a common topic to be discussed. Like you said, each individual will have to prepare for the discussion for the policy that's going to be planned in that particular meeting. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Sachin.
I think typically the agenda for the meeting is always sent. So there is a coordinator who sends the agenda of what is going to be discussed, and it is mostly what I have seen, at least wherever I have been involved. People stick to an agenda. So the meeting can go beyond a specific time, or it can be closed earlier, but agenda is followed, respective documentation is shared beforehand, so people get a chance to read it and comment on it.
Thank you, Sachin. So let's move on to next question for Sachin. I think we have got the answer to this. Does parent need to be elected to become a parent governor? You have already answered in the previous questions. Um, next question for Sachin again. I think this is answered. Are governor provided with any trainings either by local authority or school sponsors? So we know it's provided by school, and the list is endless. I mean, it's your own time. You need to
Yeah.
do the training online. Most of the trainings are online, and those are related to support your role within the as a parent governor, right? From finances to all the safeguarding trainings, and you learn a lot as part of that process. So um, next question to Sachin. I think we have partially covered this question as well. Becoming a parent governor, what are personal and professional benefits? Personal, we have learned here, like we know the child school a bit more, and the interfaces, or you can see the channels linked to the school. And like Sandeep explained, like basically a child gets transitioned from a youth to an adult from 16 years onwards. Um, then it took 4 years. Being knowing the process took 4 years. Imagine the parent who doesn't know the process could take definitely would take longer than that. And we have to even plan ahead of the game, like before a child reaches 16, we have to plan. Right? I believe we should plan from 13 or 14. I'm already started, but we should plan at an early stage. But being a parent governor will guide us, and each process does take a lot of time. Like if you need a lasting power of attorney, or um, is it called court of protection? It takes a long. Yeah, yes, please, Sandeep.
Just to clarify, learning disabled people are very unlikely to be able to have a lasting power of attorney. To have a lasting power of attorney, the person has to have capacity. Then they can sign a piece of paper which says, yes, I give that to Vinod. He can exercise it on my behalf when I don't have capacity. So that becomes very tricky. So I know of parents who have lasting power of attorney from the children when they turned adult, but that has been challenged because it was invalid in the first place. Typically, if you have a young one who doesn't have capacity, and capacity is a very specific thing, and I'm sure Sachin would know from his Mental Capacity Act training that the elements of that have to be met, and there's a capacity assessment which has to be done. And pretty much all schools should have the facility to talk parents through that. You don't have to be a parent governor to access that resource, by the way. If that young learning disabled person is in that situation, so as soon as they reach 15 or 16, parental authority ceases. And I've had this very unhappy situation where I've got a 30-year-old chap who's been looked after his mother and father all his life. They spend their life, working with him, except when they reach the hospital, they find out they have no further rights over him. That is when the court of protections can come in. And I think Vinod summarized some of what we discussed very, very well early on. He's got the knack for doing this well.
Yeah, I think that was a lovely conversation with you, Sandeep. I learned a child who has got a learning disability doesn't need lasting power of attorney because he doesn't have any mental capacity to make that decision. So the only option is to opt for court of protection, which takes a long time, and plus a lot of money is invested in that.
Well, I
I
mean, it depends how you play it. You might be able to get away with putting in less money because you could argue and say that this young person you're applying on their behalf, and there are the courts will definitely say let's not award the costs to the person. They'll find a way to get you out of it. But even if you don't want to go down the line of court of protections, there is the best interest format, which is typically the one that would be used for adults. And I'm sure Geetamrita ji would be familiar with that because as soon as you hit that, you get all the special people who are looking after this young person together. I mean, obviously older than 16, because till 16 parental authority is absolutely fine. They can consent. But beyond that, you will need a group of professionals who are working with this person, and you sit them together. And again, a forceful parent can get whatever they want most of the time. So there are ways in between. Like everything in England, there are rules and there are ways to bypass the rules.
Yeah, but they are not none of the schools or the social workers or the people working with the child are gonna come up and let you know that this is what you need to do. As a parent, we have to be proactive, know the process, not just wait until you fell off and say, okay, I should have known this before. So we should start the process early. And being part of this group, we know. I think Geeta ji, do you want to say something?
Yes, this is where I wanted the most of the guidance from all of you in this group. Point one, we would need more information of when to have, how to have, why to have a power of attorney. Because my daughter got diagnosed here, went to school here all her life, is in college, she'll finish college this year. But still, after all, and because she has been diagnosed here and the analysis, assessments have taken place here, I was under the impression that this is all there with the NHS. But when I had to first apply for PIP at the age of 16, because I didn't know, I was under the impression that disability living allowance continues as the same throughout the life. I didn't know at age 16 it changes. I didn't know after age 21 you have to reapply for it, which I literally did this month. So every time I do, they want a sick note from the doctors saying that she has special needs. But my thing is, if you already have the information, it should be passed on directly, but there is no streamline in place. So you have to redo the whole thing, and then they will do the assessment. And even till date, I call the GP for an appointment for my daughter. They always first ring and say, we are not allowed to talk to you. We have to talk to your daughter. And my understanding is because it is on their records that mom is the acting person for her for everything. Why would they ask me that question again? These are the things that put you into trouble because you don't know whether the system knows or I'm confused, if you know what I mean, if I'm talking as in the layman terms.
Yes, Sandeep ji. Yeah, you're on mute. Sandeep, you're on mute. So if you could unmute yourself.
My apologies. I'm used to the Teams app where you can unmute yourself directly from the frame itself. Anyway, so Geeta ji, as soon as a child reaches 16, the only person who can consent is the child. You have no rights to consent for the child, nor will the GP speak with you. I have the same situation with my 32-year-old. So what I've done, the way, if you want the Indian way, the shortcut way, is to put on the NHS app, right? Download that to get a phone. There is a special tariff which is designed for people with learning disability or people with special needs, which is £10 a month for unlimited data access. Now that's an excellent tariff. I'll send you details of that if you want it. That's the one I've
Please
got my
do.
daughter on. It's lifelong. She can be on £10 a month. She has more data than all of us. So really, if I had to use it anywhere, I would tether my phone off hers than any other way, right? Just get a phone, establish the NHS app on that, speak to your GP and say to them, I want to establish a link between my daughter and myself because she's learning disabled, as you know. And if they say we don't know, then you can become a little heavy handed and say, what about equity? She's learning disabled. Come on, you have to support parents. 99% of GPs will fall in line very quickly because GPs are answerable to a senior higher power. It's called the General Medical Council in the UK. So they will very quickly add you on. They'll link her record to that. You can then operate the NHS app as though it was her, if you want to.
I
That
actually
gives you
do it.
so you can use that to send messages to the GP surgery and say, hang on, we need meds, or hang on, we need this, and they will answer you much quickly than calling them up on the phone. You
I
will
do.
never get any luck with the GP.
But
So that's one.
to be asked so that the others know. I am, and
So
I
so
do that.
Absolutely. If you end up in the NHS, here's the thing to say. You know the story. Your daughter has capacity. Now, she might not have full capacity in the sense she can't make a decision what to do with the £100. Should she invest it or do something with it? But she certainly knows what the cost of ice cream is. She
Yes,
probably knows, not ice cream, she probably knows the cost of Costa coffee. These young kids don't have ice cream like I used to, they have Costa coffee. So she probably knows the cost of that. So that's capacity, but that's not capacity to be able to consent for procedure. So what you say to the people who you face up with is actually we need a best interest meeting for this young lady, and we are the parents, and watch them fall into line. Say to them, do you have a learning disability specialist nurse? Can we have a word with her? Do you have a vulnerabilities nurse? Can we speak to her? There should be equivalent numbers of that in the community as well. So your GP surgery should also have access to that. All of these things are meant to be in place, and if they are not, the NHS trust has a responsibility. Here's another one: you can become an NHS governor at your local hospital, and there are not that many people who want to be NHS governors. So if you become a governor there, you can work both ends. You can make sure that you not
that's a
only
new,
help your daughter, but you help other people as well. I do that. I have.
that's a new thing. I never knew there's somebody called as NHS governor, but I'm going to Google it now and then see if I can apply for one for sure.
Well,
Amazing.
I'm a governor at two different hospitals, but now I'm thinking I'll have to drop one because I don't really have the time to go to both.
I think to
So
support our special need child, we are learning through becoming a parent governor, a local authority governor, or NHS governor. We are all doing to, learn the process, learn the system, and then support our child. So amazing, Sandeep, for you having so many hats and sharing amazing information to all the parents here, and Geeta ji as well, to put in all the different questions so that the parents can learn. And we have a nice blend of parents here from NHS, IT, and so many different flavors. So we can learn from each other, and so many things we learned in this call. Yes, Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yes, for Geetamrita ji, have a word with your GP. It's a
yep.
difficult one to get to them. Speak to them and say, do you have a specialist learning disability nurse in the area? And if you have a specialist learning disability nurse, why don't you guys run a learning disability study day? I have done for my local organization. We had
Mhm.
over 70 professionals, and we even got a couple of learning disabled patients to come in and talk about their journey. I'm not joking. For the next 5 or 6 years, I've had no problems in finding GPs who understand what I'm talking about.
Brilliant, brilliant. Never thought of this, but I'm going to give them a ring tomorrow. The GP I go to definitely has a learning disability nurse. That's the reason I am with that particular GP, so that will work. My next question is, there lots of parents, because I work in retail, I'm always on the shop, and people find it easy to access me. So most of the parents knock my door at work, and the first question I always get asked is, which school is good to send our kids to? People don't understand the system runs differently in this country. They don't understand that council has all the answers, but you have to ask the questions. Week ago, I had somebody, I spoke to the dad, I spoke to the mom, I've sent them all the links under the sky possible. I explained how budgets work in this country, how the spectrum is divided into parts, and how each school is catered to which part of the spectrum. This is how in detail I went with them, but this is something where most of the Asian community struggles in finding. Like you said, language is the first one. Second thing is, they just think it's like India. We will just ask our friends and they say this is good, we'll send it.
Yes, Sandeep, please come up.
I'm going to share my screen now. So let me see if I can share my screen. These are two sites that I think are worthwhile looking at. One is called Disability Rights UK. They publish a little handbook. I think it only costs about 15, 20 pounds. Brilliant for anybody applying for a PIP. They also have a guide about all the benefits that are available under the sun. They could be supported living, they could be supported housing, they could be getting care, they could be getting grants. So worthwhile looking at that. And the second is a site which MenCap have linked to. It is the MenCap forum. Some of you may be aware of that. Let me share my screen. Have a look at that, and you will probably work out what I am talking about. So this is the first site. This is the one which is Disability Rights UK. They are very, very useful, particularly if you are applying for the PIP or any form of universal credit, something like that, for the older person. Also very handy for disability living allowance in case you have to apply. And this is the Health Unlocked site which MenCap host. So if you look at that, there is even a question from a dad about a son with learning disability with autism who wants a girlfriend. So a whole range of topics are discussed in here. So please, please, please have a look at these sites, share these sites, and if you find some, share them with the rest of the group. Let's give resources to our parents. The more resources they have, the more likely it is that they will be able to do things for their younger ones.
Thank you, Sandeep, for
You
sharing.
actually pointed out, sorry, Vinodji, to cut you off in the middle, but you actually pointed out the right thing. My concentration, as my daughter is 22, is on the partnership side of it. How will she find a partner? How things will work out? But you said that, now I'm going to sit and learn about this website completely tonight. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for sharing that.
that could be one of the few next topics or in future topics as well to discuss on the forum.
To have a discussion on it, because few of the experiences I went through the college and the school have so I've seen lots of friends having boyfriends and girlfriends, but then when it comes to the government, they're not meant to be having anybody because they are not cognitive, and they can't give consent for somebody to touch them, if you know what I mean. So whatever happens is not happening legally. But then every second person in the school and the college has a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So this should be the topic for some other time.
I think with the time that we have got, we'll restrict to our main agenda of the day. And we know few parents have joined and they would love to know about the agenda. Otherwise, there is so many, things that we need to discuss. But I think we'll leave that for some other session. So no, it's noted, Geeta ji. And I think Sandeep ji also wanted to share something, but with the time restriction, I think just two more questions I have, and then we'll open the floor for the rest of audience to have. So, in throughout the year, I mean, this question is to Sandeep now. Throughout the year, how many meetings? I know you mentioned that you have to give at least 15 hours in a month, but throughout the year, do you think that's the consistency, the number of hours, or slightly up and down depending, 10 to 15 hours a month you have to
Well,
spend?
don't forget their school holidays. So in school holidays, there are not going to be meetings. And I bet Sachin knows this as well. I used to dread the papers arriving. And then you have an envelope which is about that thick, 6 inches thick. And you're looking at the agenda and saying, Plumen, heck, how am I going to get this done with the rest of my work? So then you do the Asian thing. You settle down exactly as Geeta Amritaji said. You settle your backside on your chair. You get a couple of cups of coffee and you read through the damn thing so that you can make sure nothing important is missed. But I think I would attend about 9 meetings or 9 or 10 meetings in a year. I don't think I could attend all, and they do understand that people like
Correct.
you, Vinod and Sachin, you are not just parents; you're working professionals. You have a living to make. You know, in an ideal world, Sachin would be paid his salary for just doing the governor's job. That will never happen. You know,
Thank
so bodies understand that, and when they find a good governor, they hold on to him. That's why they made me move to a local authority governor when my term ran over. They said, you become a local authority governor. Then they wanted me to stay on as a co-opted governor. When I finally said, look, there's too much paperwork and I can't do justice to it.
They knew that you had amazing skills, so you can fit in any position you have been
No, 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 no,
given.
no. Vinod, you got it wrong. I was the only brown face on the entire governing body.
Oh,
I was
okay.
their ticket to saying they were compliant with black and minority ethnic. The BME compliance was because of me. Thank you.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. So, no, thank you. I have one last question to both of you, Sachin and Sandeep. And the question is, could you please share one challenging situation as you have come across being in this parent governor role, which you would like to share with all of us on this session? One each, please. Sandeep.
I can tell you about this very embarrassing situation. We had to look for a deputy headmaster. The lady who was running my daughter's class was the one who applied for it. She wasn't the best candidate. Well, the other one had better paper qualifications. And for 3 months afterwards, I could not face the lady. It was an extremely embarrassing situation to be in. I thought this lady, and what I found is, and I'm maybe Sachin has the same experience. The ones who work really well, the one that Geetamrita ji was talking about as being empathetic towards their students, are not the ones who become headmasters. The headmasters are the ones who can write the right reports. So I learned the difference between the two. It wasn't very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandeep. Sachin, would you like to share any such
Well, I
experience?
wouldn't call it embarrassing, but I think you do need to understand that you are acting as a friend to head teacher. And you do need to understand. I mean, while you can always be vocal about things. We are there to make a positive impact as a governor. So there are governor duties. And then you have to be very careful about boundaries not to be crossed. For example, I had a situation where head teacher resigned, and I asked in the meeting, why did she resign? So there could be differences between the teacher and head teacher and her deputy, and just to be sure, you need to be mindful of your boundaries. There are things which you as a governor have access to as an information, and there are things which people might not feel comfortable about discussing and elaborating that in a forum which is recorded forum.
Absolutely agree.
There are other situations where we had a scenario where somebody was bullied. We wanted to understand who that exact child was who was bullied. And it's natural, right? I mean, we feel concerned about the person. So, but then there are regulations which ensure that the details of the candidate are never discussed. So that data protection, because if you're not from the Asian, if you're in the Asian background, you are kiska bacha tha, whose child was it, and whose child was the one who was making trouble. So here, the important thing to know is that you do not need to know the name. You just need to know the characteristics, and if there are any mechanisms which can help to alleviate the situation. For example, making sure the head teacher talks to the child who is bullied, or the child who was bullying, he's counseled properly, his parents are counseled properly, and the uh, impact of the impact on the child which is bullied, who is bullied. I mean, if you have to switch the role, and we have to put that child into the other position, and to see, how do you feel about it, right? That kind of thing. So you don't need to know the specifics about who is the child. You just need to be mindful about those boundaries, that there are data protection rules in place which prevent head teachers to disclose such information to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Sandeep. I've done with my questions. I'll open the floor to our lovely audience who have been patiently listening to the panelists. And so, all our lovely parents, you could raise your hand or
I
let
have
me
one
know.
question.
Yes, please,
Uh,
Rekha ji.
yeah, thank you. Good to understand many things in the webinar today. There are a lot of things which are new to me. Firstly, I was a bit surprised to know that, like, once the child turns 16, we can no longer, I mean, we can no longer speak to the GP in the case of the child. Is it true for every learning disability child who even has severe learning disabilities? Like my child has ASD, who is on the severe spectrum, so he cannot speak to people. So is it the same case for every child, and do we need to follow the same process which was suggested in the webinar, like downloading an HS app and following that?
I think that is one of the advice a panelist has given you. But we have
Hmm.
an expert panelist here, Sandeep, who is expert in learning disability area, being a
Okay.
consultant, and he will help you get the accurate answer. Yeah.
So, but let me clarify. I'm not an expert in learning disabilities. I'm still learning. 30 years on, and I learn every
Okay.
day. Okay, so and I'm not joking. That when we discussed this earlier, and I'm sure Geeta ji will recognize it as well, Sachin. I have gained much more from my 32-year-old daughter than I've given her. The
Hmm.
person I am now is very different from what I was 32 years ago. I can tell you that. She's been the making of me in many, many, many ways.
Right.
If I were a mother, I'd
Hmm.
probably be crying buckets of tears now, but I'm not. I'm a man. So I don't have all those things to worry about. Now, simple answer. Um,
Yeah.
if you want to, as far as any person is concerned, any adult, as soon as they hit 16,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
parental consent goes away. Parental consent only applies till 16 in UK, 15 in Scotland. So in
Oh,
Scotland, it's a little bit earlier. At
okay.
16, you onwards, the GP, if they want to, can turn around to you, say, sorry, we can't discuss this with you. We need to discuss it with the person. The way to work around it is to write to the GP practice. In this case, look for your GP surgery manager. If you have problem finding the names or details for that, contact me directly. I have the NHS global address database, though I'm not
Mhm.
supposed to have it, but I have it because I email everybody in the country. So I can easily find out the name of your practice if I have a little bit more information. Email them and say, my son/daughter is learning disabled. I need to have a way in which I can operate their accounts for them, and your GP surgery will almost definitely have an online account where all the health information is kept. Also, the NHS app, so you can use that as well formally without any issues. And the second thing you can say to them, if you have the DLA and you have a letter from the DLA, or you have a
Mhm.
letter from PIP saying you are the appointee, then you can say, I have a letter which says
Mhm.
I am an appointee. As long as you use the word appointee, the GP understands that. That means those authorities have recognized you as the responsible person to deal with the financial side of things. Both of those will get you access to what you want. And make sure your GP surgery record that you have a special needs child, because
Mhm.
they very frequently miss out that information, which should be so obvious to them, but they miss it out.
Right.
But once it's there on the records, make sure that every time you speak to them or you write to them, you say, look, I'm the parent of so and so, as you know, they're learning disabled. And that will stop them in their tracks.
Mhm. Right. Is it the same case with NHS as well, please? I mean, GP we can write
Absolutely.
to.
No, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Everything to do with the NHS is the same. The GPs are just the
Mhm.
primary care. The NHS is
Mhm.
primary care, secondary care is DGHs, and the tertiary care is teaching hospitals. So all of
Mhm.
them work on the same principles. The principles for consent are the same across the country, no matter where you are. So if
Mhm.
you have to go into the NHS for any appointment, it's likely that they could object. Though having said that, the NHS can be pretty bad with recognizing these things. So I gave a brief example early on about 11-year-old learning disabled child who's had the most horrendous things written about them, things like do not resuscitate, and mother had no idea
Mhm.
what was being written, and the NHS was
Mhm.
very happy to treat them without any formal consent process. Things are changing, and in the next few years, I
Yeah.
think this will change. But if you ever need to go to the NHS and you find a
Mhm.
problem, ask them, do you have a learning disability specialist nurse? Do you have
Yeah.
a vulnerabilities team? Do you have a
Mhm.
safeguarding team? those three words, learning disability team, vulnerabilities team, safeguarding team, will let them know you know what you're talking about, and then drop in saying if there's any concerns, this will need a best interest meeting. They will immediately understand what you're talking about.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for finding this. I'll make
No,
a
no,
note
any
of
problems,
everything.
give me a shout.
Yeah.
Any problems, give me a shout. More than happy to answer questions like this at any time. Morning, evening, I'd answer 24/7 for the hospital. No different from anybody else.
Oh, thank you so much.
Minoji, you're in mute. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Yeah, we can
Sorry.
hear you now.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Harika ji, for a very useful question. I mean, many of us are in similar situation, and will certainly need that advice, which we were looking for, and will operate accordingly now. So, thank you. Any other? Yes, Sandeep, please.
Vinodji, just be careful. Don't start to put these words in before they're needed. If they start to give you grief, then use these words. If they don't give you grief, why rock the boat? As long as you are getting what you want.
No,
Yes.
absolutely. I mean,
So,
if you're stopped, then only use it. Yeah, I understand.
absolutely. And use a phone a friend. I'm very happy to be called.
Sure. Thank you. Um, any other parent I mean, we would love to see you online, and face to face is always best than having seen just a name. But yeah, please come or raise your hand, and any queries you have, just ask our panelists. This is the last opportunity, and we might be closing this call, or maybe just taking last few summary. So
If I can ask another question, when we have a student governor or a parent governor, when we have a parent governor, and if a parent is struggling, saying that this particular student, for example, if I say my daughter is struggling in a class, and she says I was happy with the previous teacher or in a different class, can this be taken to the governor and somebody will sit and talk to us and solve the problem?
yes,
Yeah,
Sachin, yeah.
I'll try to have a stab at it, right? I think when it comes to special needs, normally children have a star pattern. What that means is they may not be good at all the subjects. They might be good at one subject. Um, so the requirement of a child needs to be looked into holistically. So if you're talking about, just to give an example, if again I'm not an expert, but if you are talking about maths, a child in the same class might be genius at maths, but might be zero at history. The profile varies a lot. So the needs of a child need to be taken into consideration. While we as Indian parents might feel, oh, my son's maths is not good, but there might be a social need, which might be a dire situation where you really need help on the social side, than the maths. So even we as a parents fall to that fallacy that we try to compare our children to other children. We try to see who is doing well, who is not doing well in which subject. But I mean, we all have our individual requirements and individual needs. We need to see which areas our children struggle in, and they may not be just academical topics. They might be other topics, like uh, the topics of social interaction and topics of anxiety and all that stuff.
Thank you, Sachin. Yes, Sandeep.
Just to add to that, Geetamrata there is a very nice term. It's called supportive challenge. Never be afraid of supportively challenging teachers. That's what they're there for. And if teachers are allowed to run and do exactly what they want, we all know they don't do very well. Some of us are teachers as well. So there's nothing wrong in challenging a teacher and saying, look, my daughter or my son is not doing very well in here. Can you see any reasons why? Is it because of the environment? Is it because of the support structure? Is it where they are seated in class? You can ask a heck of a lot of questions based upon the sensory motor neural profile of your own child so that they understand all teachers also need to recognize something that they don't in this country because of those cultural differences you talked about. Parents are the best resource for a child, and particularly if you're an Asian parent, you will be fighting for your child at all times, you know. So don't be afraid to do that. Just don't get too aggressive. You want to get to the
Yeah.
point where you get results.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing I was just gonna add here. Aggressive doesn't work. I mean, it might go against and support. You may not receive that support immediately. That's what I have learned. But yeah, like you said, the word term supportively challenge. What I do is I just say this is my positive feedback after, and say, and list out my things and then feed it to them and then see how it's improved. And then see if it doesn't improve, then I can chip in next time. Yeah, go ahead, Sandeep. So that's what I do.
Okay, here's a term all medical professionals and teachers understand. It's that feedback, and you may know it as well. It's called the shit sandwich. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I
So the
haven't.
shit sandwich is, you did this marvelously. That was excellent. And you say, and that also went really well. And then in the middle, you said, you know what? That little bit in there where we seated my daughter where she was, maybe that could have been different. She might have performed better. So you sandwich the crap between nice words.
Nice
It's
words.
called the
Yeah.
shit sandwich in medicine. It's very standard in education as well.
But
Yeah.
I
No, thank you.
your sugar attracts more ants around it, not the other way around.
Yeah. Thank you for a nice question, Geeta ji. We have Neerat hand raised, so please go ahead with the question.
Hi. Thanks so much for your help and your information this evening. I just wanted to ask Sandeep Bhai about the two websites that he mentioned.
One is Disabilities Right UK, and the second one I forgot to record. Yeah,
I'll,
Sandeep,
I'll,
please
I'll
go.
I'll share my screen again. It's not a huge issue. So these two websites, one is the Disability Rights UK, and I'll share my screen now. So my apology, Neeraj. I must have taken
That's
it
it.
off too quickly.
I
So
think I screenshotted one of them.
well, it's disabilityrightsuk.org, and the
And then,
second one is Health
mm,
Unlocked, which is a MenCap discussion forum. Now, the things in there, if you look at that questions, health inequalities for patients, for people with learning disabilities, how do we go about a court of protection order? My son was diagnosed autistic in 2018 and epileptic before that. What do I do? I'm looking
the-
for new friends. And then there's stuff, my dad saying my son wants to have a girlfriend, and then can I be a carer for my I'm a
is
teacher, can I
is
be somebody's carer? Whole
so,
range of questions.
yeah, thank you. Is it possible to share that link in the group chat?
Absolutely.
And maybe then we can put it in the WhatsApp group as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. More than happy to do that.
Thank
Anybody
you.
needs any other information, by all means, feel free to come through to me. I think I've already sent that link to Geeta Brataji.
Okay. Yeah. If you could share on the chat here, so maybe people who revisit this seminar, this Zoom call, they might again access the link that we are discussing.
Absolutely. I mean, broadly speaking, it's the MenCap. MenCap have a big forum, but typically there's more towards the adult side of the age group. But don't forget, all our children are going to be adults one day.
Okay.
And there is also that really important topics that I discussed with Vinod. Every parent in this room needs to start to think about what would happen if one of them passed away today.
Yeah.
Really need to think very hard about that.
And
Thank you.
that's a topic for the next. I think we should have experts
Yeah.
pulled in on
Right.
that.
Yeah. So any other parent would like to ask any question? I know a few parents have joined in last half an hour at the end of the session, but we are happy to take any questions. Otherwise, we can conclude the session. Just
Sorry, I've got
is
one more question based on what you just said. I just want to just check, if for like financial planning and things for my child who's autistic, obviously not being so morbid, but thinking very realistically about, parents passing away. Is there anything like a financial kind of like a program or something or an investment scheme that's good for kids with disabilities, or is it just another life policy?
I think we have had a discussion with Sandeep, and he has given amazing insights about it. So I'll let Sandeep answer this. I mean, I know, but I think he's more expert on this. Yes, Sandeep.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm just becoming, I'm becoming getting into the situation where I'm dealing with this actively as we speak. But remember, if you have a special needs child or person who will one day be a special needs adult, the likelihood is that they will be funded by the state. Now, the state will either play out via the local authority. All the local authority benefits are means tested, or they might be continuing healthcare funded, which is NHS funded, which is not means tested. Sometimes the health authority and NHS will split the care packages between them. That package can range from, I'll give you an example, a colleague of mine who has a autistic son who's now hitting 18 has just managed to, via the court order, get the local authority to buy a house worth 150,000 for this child, for this young man to live in, independently with 2-to-1 care for him at all times. So the packages can be huge. But remember that if these packages are means tested, if your child is seen to have any form of savings, that will go hugely against them and they will eat into it. There is an excellent seminar for anybody who wants to attend, run by MENCAP. We just attended that a few days ago. I've attended that before as well. I'll happily share links to that, but it may be a bit early for some people. However, I think planning for that needs to start very early on. And I think this is a very big topic. And as Vinod probably knows, that life insurance one that you picked up, a whole of life insurance that pays out when you pass away eventually, whenever that happens, is a very, very useful thing to have because that can be written into trust. And trust is seen as outside of your estate, hence it doesn't get hit by inheritance tax. So many things in there, but we can pick that up another time.
I think your voice was breaking, Sandeep ji, or the audio wasn't.
Is this any better?
It is better now. Yeah. So it was breaking throughout the conversation, but we got the
Okay.
gist. I think we
Thanks for your response. Thank you.
certainly have because there are two different areas like which is lasting power of attorney, and some children who have got severe learning disability would require court of protection. So we had some discussion on this call, but we will definitely schedule another similar Zoom call by understanding the number of children that would require, or we'll just put a poll on our group to see how many people would be interested to have that kind of session, and we'll certainly plan soon. Yeah. So thank you for asking that question. Is there anyone else, or shall we conclude this session now? Yeah, Sandeep.
I must say thank you to Vinod. You've done a marvelous job putting this together. So all I can say is none of this would have happened without you. So thank you very much. And you
Absolutely.
have excellent summarizing skills. So you've chaired this beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
very much for arranging it. Yeah. Very
Welcome.
professionally done. Thank you.
Without you all being on this call and without the panelist, this Zoom call, I mean, this session would have not been, a successful one. So I would like to thank Chitra Sudarji, who has offered this Zoom facility for us. I have used the account given by her, scheduled all the settings that we require for this session. So she has generously given her account for the entire group. So thank you, Chitraji. Thanks to our amazing panelists, Sandeep Saxena, sorry, Noji, and Sachin Kotalwar for sharing insights of parent governor role and its benefits. Finally, thanks to all the parents and group members for their time and attending this session and making it a successful event. So hope this session was useful. Kindly request everyone to share their feedback on our WhatsApp group, and if possible, I'll create maybe a survey and then share as well on the group. So just for the parents who have joined at the end of the session, we have created a YouTube channel called Special Need Children Parents.com. Please subscribe to that YouTube channel. The link has been shared in the WhatsApp group. And we can share again if you need to. But this entire recording will be uploaded there and will be shared so that you can revisit or you can share with your other special need parents. And yeah, so that's the whole idea. So thank you once again for spending a Friday busy evening, entire, 2 hours with us, nearly 2 hours with us. And thanks to the panelists who have come half an hour in advance to share all the insights. So thank you. And
Thank
Have a lovely evening and enjoy the Northern Lights. Northern Lights. We are supposed to see Northern Lights tonight in UK from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the night. So please watch out if you have energy. Watch in the north direction and see if you can see some Northern Lights sitting here in UK. You can
So
see.
Vinodji, two things I want to clarify. One, these are not panelists. This is a group of peers. We are all of us
Group of friends.
parents. So it's peers. It's not a panelist at all. The second thing is, none of this can happen without thank yous to our respective spouses. I'm going to have to pay because I've taken 2.5 hours out from my older one who only recognizes dad as the person who has to do everything for her. So thank you for all the spouses who are not here and who've allowed all of us
Absolutely.
to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And I'll call of the day and have a lovely weekend. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Thanks.
Good
you so
night.
much. Good night.
Cheers. Cheers. Bye.
You.